Well, thank you so much for being here. I'll call to order this special session of the Bloomington Common Council on, what is the date today? March 11th, 2026. Our Honorable Clerk, will you please read call the roll?
Councilmember Flaherty. Stossberg. Zulik.
Here.
Asari.
Here.
Daly. Here. Rallo.
Here.
Ruff.
Here.
And Rosenbarger.
Here.
Okay, well, today this special session is a short one, and then we'll transition into a deliberation session. I'll be honest, we had ambitions, the four of us at the hiring committee, to be able to, before this meeting, come to an agreement about what we wanted all of the job descriptions to look like and to have those for you. But we did not come to an agreement about that. Instead, what we have today is a little bit of, according to our charge, we have four options of things that we can at least discuss, whether we want to move those forward now so that they can inform how we want to progress with the job descriptions. Of course, we don't have to make a decision on that today, but that is what the committee is prepared to do today. So, what we'll do here is just a very quick sort of update on our last meeting, and then we'll present we've come up with four different options. We'll present those options and then hopefully have just some discussion. And if we do come to an agreement, then that'll help us move forward with crafting the job description. So I'll start, and then please, Councilmember Rallo and Zulik, please feel free to jump in at any time. The way that we see it is that we have, as I said, four possibilities. The first one is obvious, is the status quo, which is just keep things as they are. We have 3 lines, keep them in those 3 lines. You have a lawyer administrator, a deputy lawyer administrator, and then some type of a legal researcher. Choice number 2 is the idea of separating the administrative functions from the legal functions. Of course, there are some administrative functions that overlap with legal functions, like preparing, for example, legislation. But the main gist of choice 2 is to separate these two roles. The question that begs is, where does that administrator then sit? And the option that we're proposing is that person would sit in the clerk's office. And so we could talk about what that would be called, but you could think of that as like a, I don't know, council project manager, a chief clerk for council liaising, chief administrator, something like that. But that person would be in the clerk's office, and then we would maintain our 2 lawyers who would just be lawyers. Option 3, please add to that.
One of the things that we discussed about, just in terms of housing housing someone who was previously a council staff in the clerk's office, is there was a little bit of concern that we might lose some autonomy. So I just want everyone to know that this is not a person that would be making decisions on behalf of council. This is just a person that would be doing a lot of the labor that goes into creating a council meeting, whether that be packet preparation or like assisting with scheduling, those types of things. So please don't interpret this as we're giving up something.
Thank you. The third option was a hybrid of option 1 and 2, which is something along the lines of, instead of having that third line be a full-time legal researcher, is turning that into 2 part-time roles. Of course, a lot of extra work would be required to do that. One of whom would sit in the clerk's office with the role that we just described, and another who would fulfill the duties of a legal researcher, with the other 2 positions staying more or less the same with a lightened administrative load. And then our fourth option, I don't think any of us liked, but it's sort of thinking about shifting where the responsibilities within the status quo might lay, which is namely to put more of the administrative burden on the person who's currently the deputy. Now this has precedent, and then everybody else staying the same. This does have precedent prior with Dan Sherman when, and her name is escaping me, but we had a lawyer who was not yet a licensed attorney attorney, that's when we first had this legal researcher job. That job was then upgraded when she got her license, and then that's how we ended up with a deputy attorney and a sort of chief attorney. And so that would be the fourth idea, something like reshifting amongst the three positions that we already have some of the roles and responsibilities in a way that you put more of the administration on the deputy than on the lead legal person. So those are the four ideas. Anything that I'm missing, Councilmember Ratlow?
Yes, well, I have a different recollection, actually, and that is, my opinion is a variation of the current schemata of the council office. My main concern is autonomy of the council office, and that I would like to keep our duties in-house. And so I thought one of the options was to have an attorney hired, but not a administrator per se, but an attorney that would then direct a deputy attorney / administrator that would have under them a legal researcher for the work that we needed in order to investigate and work on legislation, and an additional assistant for administration, somebody who could do the work that is more clerical in nature, putting together the essentials of the packet and, making sure rooms are reserved, or, whatever other charges are necessary for just the day-to-day administration. So, my contention is to try to keep it in-house, because I think that we have limited power as a council, and I would hate to have, what I see is a potential for conflict. If we have somebody who is directed by the clerk to assemble packets, and there's a problem with the packet, who does that? Whose responsibility does that fall on? Who does the firing? Who does, how do we work out the details of this person's role that directly affects council work? So that's my contention, keep it in-house. And if we're going to add an extra FTE and ask the mayor for that, I think that it should be for our office. We have a very limited staff. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, so with that, yeah, please, Councilmember Flaherty.
Could I ask you to clarify the third option again? I'm not sure I fully followed the number of staff roles, where they sit, and what their purview is.
So there's lots of variations of how it could work, but the basic tenet is go from 3 lines to 2 full lines and 2 part-time lines, and then lots of different ways that you can arrange what those two part-time lines are. But
got it.
yes.
So in the second option, are we keeping the legal researcher? Because you didn't mention keeping the legal researcher.
No.
So we'd be getting rid of the legal researcher.
Yeah. So keeping the 3 lines, but turning the third one into an administrator that would sit in the clerk's office. Councilmember Flaherty.
And I assume, I don't know if it's still called this, but service corps fellows and things like that sort of live outside this. We're only talking staff with, yeah.
Yep, and yeah, that's another question to be answered, I think, later, which is sort of where might, maybe that expands our capability to receive more Service Corps fellows and the like wonderful Michael, but, thinking about sort of where they would sit and be. Yep. Councilmember Rosenbarger.
Hi, I'm sorry, I am not seeing this. Is this a memo that I can read?
No, there wasn't one, and sorry.
I guess I almost need, I cannot wrap my mind around these. Do you all not have anything in writing that can be passed on to us?
No.
Did you read something out
No.
for this?
No.
Okay,
Apologies.
I just, I guess I just thought I missed it, and so now I don't have, do you just want to go through them all again? I don't
Sure.
know, I'm sorry, everybody, I have nothing
Yeah,
to look
sure.
at.
No problem. So we have 3 lines, and option 1 is keep the 3 lines as they are. Option 2 is change line 3, which is our legal researcher, to being an administrator that would sit in the clerk's office. Option 3 is to break up line 3 into 2 people, part-time. Option 4, what was option 4? I forgot.
So option 3, the 2 part-time, one would live in the clerk's office and one would live in the council's office.
Yeah, but that's is to split up line 3, and then option 4 was to realign the administrative functions within the status quo. So move those to the deputy administrator rather than to the chief legal person.
Move administrator to deputy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Councilmember Daley and then Councilmember Flaherty.
Just a quick question then on your thoughts on how that plays out, because you had said when you were talking about then that option 4 was the least attractive one. Why?
Yeah, we just didn't think that it. I mean, we might. You all tell me if you feel differently, but I think at the time when we met just yesterday, we didn't feel like that really solves any problems. I think it just shifts the burden from one position to another. So, I mean, we're presenting it as an option because it was something we discussed, but none of us particularly liked that option.
Well, I did.
Okay.
I like that option.
Dave loved that option.
I mean, it's worked before. It worked for 30 years under Dan Sherman. It worked for several years under Stephen Lucas.
The idea of the deputy having all of the administrative stuff.
Most of it fell on. Actually, it was sort of a team effort. I think it was shared, but yeah, it would be more of the, I think we were told, if I'm not mistaken, that we can't hire an administrator, we can hire an attorney.
Yeah.
And so the attorney that we hire should be able to sort this out. And in the past, it's been sorted out by having the deputy attorney share administrative duties. In this case, they could share, they could have that burden. And I think that what we should do is advocate for another, at least half FTE or maybe a full, to do administrative work that would help the deputy. But we need a full-time legal researcher. I mean, I think that in my experience, for the council office to work optimally with the various ideas that we all have about legislation, we're 9 people that would be this person would be required to do legal research potentially for 9 people. And I think that's asking a lot. Mm-hmm. So that's my contention, is that leave it as it is and modify it. Maybe after we hire an attorney, let them sort it out once they, assume the duties of the office and see what their needs are.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Councilman Flaherty.
Are we just in sort of open discussion / questions?
Yeah,
Is that all right?
yeah.
Okay. I mean, attorneys are legal researchers. They're very good at it, and they can do more than that, and develop legislation and other things. And so I think the attractiveness of approach 2, which fully separates the administrative function, fully, I don't know if that can be quite fully done. I guess I'm curious about that a little bit, that if we have 2 full-time attorneys where their main focus is the legal work of helping us understand the legal context and contours of the legislation that we're receiving, helping us develop legislation, that seems like a large capacity add on the legal support front. But it also seems, I guess, in that context, I'm worried about I know it did work for, I think it was Stacey Jane Rhodes and then Stephen Lucas for a time, but I think we'll be hard pressed to retain barred attorneys who have a substantial administrative function much past the first year or 2 of their career. I don't think that's what most attorneys went to law school to do. And so that's a concern I have, I guess, with, sort of using the old approach, I guess. Additionally, it seems like the administrative burdens of the office have increased substantially since, say, 5 to 10 years ago for a variety of reasons. Accessibility laws, maybe just the pace of activity, the management of online meetings, just a bunch of stuff, right? And I'm wondering if that came up in the committee's discussions at all and how you all were thinking about that. And honestly, even if one FTE sitting in the clerk's office is enough to handle all the administrative duties. And then final question as related to did you consider that is how the chain of command or like interplay between the lead attorney for the counsel's office and the administrative person sitting in the clerk's office, how that would work. I mean, can they assign things? Would it be done jointly with the clerk? How would that function? Thank you.
Do you want to take that, Sydney? Oh, go ahead. Dave, do you want to talk about that first?
Yeah, well, how I see it is by having the administrator in the clerk's office, we're setting ourselves up for a potential conflict. Conflict in packet preparation for one thing. The other is that I would like an administrator in-house that's responsible for our budget and responsible for scheduling. So we have scheduling meetings, I think, every Tuesday still. We have scheduling meetings with the administration. I expect that person should answer to the council, not the clerk. So that is an administrative duty that I would hope that would fall within the domain of the council, as well as the budget, as well as the packet preparation to at least a major extent. Because otherwise, I think we're setting ourselves up for a conflict. Thank you.
I think to answer the question, yes, we did discuss it, and I think as Councilman Barala just illustrated, this is part of the reason why we needed to bring the discussion to a larger group, because I think that was the big contention point. It's that I think we all get your exact point of, and this is also something that our past attorney stroke administrators, including Stephen Lucas, have all shared. They were like, the burden of administration is increasing. And so, how do we lessen that burden or share that burden in a better way? But the question that we don't have an answer to is like, okay, well, what does happen if that person's in the clerk's office and they then serve at the pleasure of the clerk? How do we have them, like what charges can be given? How do they work together with the attorneys, with counsel? Like a lot of those type of questions, I think we need to iron out if we're of the opinion that we'd want to move this position to the clerk's office. There's another caveat, which is, we sort of by process of elimination assumed that the place where you put it is the clerk's office. Could be somewhere else, I guess, but I don't know if there's a better option than the clerk's office. But yeah, Councilmember Strasburg?
Well, I'm also kind of, so I guess a few things are going through my mind. One is I feel like we're talking about administrative function and administrative burden and putting it all together in like one bunch of stuff. And I think there's lots of different pieces of administration, and there's some that would have to stay with our staff. And so ironing out and understanding what would need to stay with our staff and what could go with maybe a more dedicated administrative person would be really important. And I guess I would kind of wonder in terms of like what maybe, in terms of packet preparation, in terms of some of the accessibility stuff, in terms of some of that like scheduling piece and that kind of like calendaring stuff. I feel like that person could potentially make more sense to go underneath the administration somewhere or out of the mayor's office somewhere, because I don't know if I'm assuming the legislative assistant in the mayor's office still comes to the scheduling meetings, and especially when it comes to, the stuff that goes into our Wednesday packets, it comes from the administration and then also has to go through, this process of our attorneys reading it to make sure that there's not something going wrong with it, and they would still need to do that. And it would almost like make more sense to go, okay, well then if this person who's then preparing the packet, and packet preparation is also going to have to change because of accessibility in terms of links and things. So I don't know if that has been like discussed as a where like does it make sense to put that person in that office? What does the administration think about that? How,
that's an interesting idea.
The same questions maybe could arise in terms of that like structure and reporting structure, but because clerk staff all report to the clerk in this very structured way according to code, according to state code, like I'm kind of with Councilmember Rallo, it makes me kind of uncomfortable to put somebody who's essentially a dedicated staff member for council into the clerk's office. And I guess I'm maybe less uncomfortable putting that into the administration somewhere because so
interesting.
much of the stuff that goes in the packet is coming from the administration already in terms
that's
of
interesting.
ordinances and reports and all of those pieces. Like that person would communicate so much with different departments, different people in different departments who
Yep.
come to us for things.
Yep. Okay, yeah, so I have a couple of thoughts to that, and also Clerk McDowell, at any point, feel free to also opine. Go ahead, Councilmember Zulik.
Oh, I just have a couple comments. We did schedule our next hiring committee meeting for Tuesday at 5 p.m. And so we are planning to discuss the job responsibilities if we are able to identify which option that we wanted to go with tonight. And so part of the reason that some of those questions are unanswered is because we haven't, we will be discussing it after this.
And I think that you raise a good point as well, which is, I mean, these things sort of go together. We sort of stalled at the very thing that we're stalling at here yesterday at our meeting. But obviously, once we all as a body approve the actual job descriptions, I think it does maybe help us tease out some of, what are the duties that we're really talking about, in both cases. So maybe some of that just gets teased out as we go. But just a general sense in the room, though. I mean, are we all? Do we all generally share the idea that part of, and I'm sorry, that's a leading question, but I don't know how to ask it in any other way, sorry, being too colloquial, but do you disagree with the idea that we want to separate the administrative functions from the attorneys that we would hire, like the bulk of the clerical elements of those administrative functions? Anybody disagree with that point? See, Councilmember Ruff.
I'm not saying I necessarily disagree with it, but as Councilmember Rosenberger said, I saw nothing about this yet. This is proposing making potentially some very dramatic changes to some complex interactions and workings to get legislation and council business done. There's no way between now, I'll just tell you now, that between now and next Tuesday, I'm going to feel comfortable that we're going to put some changes based on tonight's discussion into a new job description, or to somehow apply it to the job search starting now. And I don't necessarily agree that there is a significant amount of work that needs to be shifted away from council staff the way it has been. As has been pointed out, it's worked for a long time. That doesn't mean it can't be improved. It doesn't mean it can't be tweaked. But to just charge in and make dramatic changes when there's really not evidence that the system was broken, right? And, I still talk with Stephen Lucas, and it wasn't, the primary reason of his leaving had nothing to do with work-life balance. And so my strong feeling, based on the very limited information I've had about this and the short time we've had to think about it and discuss it, is with this job search, which we need to start pretty soon, we should move forward with what we have job descriptions. We have something to move forward with now. We make the hire, and we use that time, as has been described by, I think, some of my fellow council members tonight, we use that time to work with that person. How can we decide exactly what duties are problematic or could be moved best, or what they're most comfortable? I just like we'll need that input. My instinct is go with what we've got. We've got something that we know has worked for decades. Not perfectly or flawlessly, but to go in and just dramatically change it when we don't really know. None of us have done all that work that goes on behind the scenes to make our work happen. And I'm totally opposed to any dramatic changes. this quickly and not involving someone who's directly participated or will be participating, as in maybe our new hire, in figuring out how we're going to do this, how a better way might be to shift some of the duties around. That's how I feel.
So thank you so much. Councilmember Zulik?
Thank you. Well, I think we should consider the circumstances of the different staff that we've had. Dan Sherman served for quite a long time, and so he had a long time to be able to acclimate to the position. And Stephen Lucas was fortunate enough to come up through the council staff and operate in the council office for multiple years before he eventually became attorney. And so I'm concerned that if we leave it as the status quo, that a new attorney might not have those same skill sets, because a lot of those skills are going to be developed on the job. So I don't have a specific answer, but I just want to point that out. And also just point out that one of our options is to suggest a part-time legal researcher who could maybe fill in some of the gaps that our two attorneys might not be able to finish, and then move or create a part-time position in the clerk's office that would be just for those clerical responsibilities. So I think that those are some things to keep in mind. Thank you.
Councilmember Flaherty, and then Strasburg.
The best time to make a change of some kind would be now. It's not realistic, I don't think, to say we have the job description, with much respect to Mr. Ruff, it's Councilmember Ruff, it's yes, we have the job descriptions. It's almost similar arguments to council salary of all things, that there's some similarities of well, don't, just go with it because we all knew what it was, but then it's hard to change it at a systems level if you're trying to change it for the next people. And that's kind of like what this is like. If we hire the positions exactly as they exist, that's what you hired for. The decision, the die has been cast. You can't reformulate everything then, at least definitely not very easily. Arguably, you could hire the attorney, if we were going with option 4, say, which I think was mainly just attorney function for the lead attorney, heavier deputy function for the second attorney. You could hire the first one first, because that's maybe compatible with both systems 2 and 4, and give them a minute, and then sure, have their input and help making that decision. But I think the evidence is mixed. I know it worked well for Dan Sherman for 30-year plus career, I think, and that we had some success with it. I also think the demands of the job administratively have shifted quite a bit, as I noted. So I do think we're in a changed context, and I think the recent experience has not been positive. And I know there's multiple factors going into all that, but I think the design of the office and how the positions are staffed was part of it, as I understand. So I don't feel like we have strong evidence of this is a successful model, and I as much as it might cause us some discomfort to wade into uncertainty, and yes, it's high stakes in a sense, it's also always changeable. If we run into conflicts and it's just really not working with an administrative person housed in the clerk's office, we can eliminate the position and go back to what it was. I know that involves hiccups too, but it's kind of a no risk, no reward thing to me. I think I see the benefits and opportunity of trying something different, and I think I favor that approach of trying to separate those functions. I like the design of option 2. Obviously, we have a diversity of opinions up here, so where we land, I don't know, but just some counterpoints. Thanks.
I think Councilmember Strasburg and then Councilmember Rallo.
I'm kind of feeling a little bit like a both and right now too, and I'm just reading through the job description that we approved last year for the attorney position, which is different than the one that was shared in the Google Drive earlier, if anybody wasn't aware of that. But most of those essential primary, actually I think all of the essential primary duties are all legal or supervisory. And the non-essential secondary ones are, there's only one that really falls under administrative, which is answering telephones, greeting visitors, et cetera, which I think, anytime you work in an office, there's the chance, no matter what your job, you're going to have to answer a phone or, greet somebody in the office. So that doesn't bother me. And kind of looking at this, I do think that this job description is pretty good for whatever that primary attorney is that we would need in terms of somebody directing an office. So I'm kind of with Councilmember Ruff and going like, let's get this one advertised at the very least. And technically, like, this is the one that we supervise as a body. This is the one that we hire as a body. And the other ones all report to this person. And so then cooperatively working with this person to figure out what it is that they want or
Yep.
what they think is best for them moving forward. I think that in some way, it would take longer to maybe staff the full office,
Yep.
but maybe makes more sense long-term. And the other thing that I want to bring up is all 4 of these options have the assumption that we want 2 full-time attorneys.
Right.
Do we want 2 full-time attorneys?
Mm-hmm.
Do we want, this main person to be a full-time attorney, and then do we
Right.
want a part-time attorney?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Right? And then do like 1.5 part-time attorneys, and then like a full-time researcher, and then a part-time administrative person. Like, I guess I feel like there's like other options in here.
Yep.
I mean, one of the benefits that Lisa shared with me about having 2 attorneys is then you can bounce ideas off and have that kind of collaborative nature, and that can be done with city legal, but sometimes council, what council is looking at and what city legal is looking at are kind of at odds potentially, depending on what the research is, what the thing is. And so having a second part-time attorney, might actually allow for that, but in some ways also split off some of that administrative work, or some of that, as you called it, if you go to law school and you get barred, then you want to do legal work, you don't want to do administrative work. But perhaps, you could have a part-time legal researcher that does do more of the administrative work, which I think has also been, for the folks that we've employed for Christine, who had, a lot of that like related experience already. She found that stuff very interesting. And even, that clerical stuff was still good for her. I think that Aria feels the same way in terms of her background, and they're not, they're both on a track to be attorneys, but they're not there yet. And I mean, this is Bloomington. There's a lot of people in town that might have some of those skills that can be useful in the researcher context, and then they would be totally fine with some of that more administrative piece, as long as we have that part-time attorney. The thing that I don't know is whether there are attorneys out there that want like part-time, consistent like this, as opposed to contracted. And I just don't know.
Thank you. Councilmember Rosenbarger, then Rollo.
I would say I really want 2 full-time attorneys. I think there's a lot of legal work that's been held up because there's been like 0 time to get it done. I mean, I understand if we try to make space and take packet production off our attorney's plate, it can be different, but I think in our work, there is a lot that an attorney has to have their eyes on no matter what at some point in the process. It just like really complicates everything. I will say, just like, as an attorney, I think that I haven't been able to get my questions like asked and answered by anyone in our office other than the attorneys. So like the legal researchers don't have, I think, that experience, and even sometimes our attorneys don't have the experience, right? And so we're all looking it up, and I think having two full-time attorneys, I think is really important. I do also wonder if anything we do part-time, if it just limits the applicant pool. I mean, that could really go either way, so I think it's just something to consider. I have said for a long time, since before we hired our last 2 staff, that I don't think we have enough hours of workers in the office, and I would opt for I kind of just lost it closed. An option 4 with, I forget what option 4 is. It's the
It's the redistribution essentially of.
I would just add that person in as a fourth employee in the council office. I think I'd look forward to potentially in the next year and a half being able to write legislation. And I think right now we just don't have attorneys to do it. And there's so many procedures, even with the new, with the mayor only being 2 years old here, there's been so many procedural questions, right? And so I like the idea of another staff person, and I think, to me, that's almost easiest to get going. I hear what Councilmember Ruff is saying, and then Stossberg, that the job description right now doesn't have a lot in it that's not legal. I even thought, though, about develops, submits, and executes the budget. What if that job gets switched to an operations administrative person, but then this job is still to approve the final budget, right? I don't know, things that could be taken off, but with approval of this position, I guess.
Okay, we'll go to Councilmember Zulik. We just have about 5 minutes, so, and we don't have to make any decisions today anyways, because we already have a charge.
Yes.
9 whole minutes, great. We already have a charge, just reminding you of 2 things. We already have a charge that we've all, I see. Oh yeah, I said you were before Zulik, so yeah, so Roland, then Zulik. But we already have a charge, so don't, we don't have to take up any vote today or anything like that. One of the things in the charge is that you will all see the job descriptions before they go out, so you can be easy with that. But go ahead, Councilmember Rallo.
So I'm trying to establish points of agreement with my colleagues, and I happen to agree broadly with a lot of things that have been said. One thing that was said by Councilmember Stossberg is that there are non-essential duties that are administrative that could be shifted. And that's logical. There's probably little hazard in doing that, and it could actually be the administrative role to do that. So that's possible. However, again, it comes down to, in an office, you have a hierarchy and you have expectations, and if those aren't fulfilled, then you have a chain of command that you look to. If we divide duties, then you end up with potential conflict. That to me is still unresolved, but the non-essential duties are essentially, I think, I'm relatively at peace with that, and I want to explore that more. Statute says that we can hire an attorney. According to Corporation Counsel Margie Rice, it's silent on hiring an administrator. It doesn't say one way or another. Apparently some cities have. In any case, it seems to me that in the past, as it could be going forward, those administrative duties could be shared on the relative importance and complexity at various levels within the office. If I understood Councilman Rosenberger, you were saying whatever number of the scheme, you said number 4, but I took that to mean attorney, deputy attorney administrator, legal researcher, and then another FTE that would be involved in administrative work. Is that correct? Okay, because that's what I favor too. I think that we should have 2 full-time attorneys. I think that it's important to have a backup, and it's also, in my experience, a collaborative and reaching agreement on things that have levels of complexity and controversy is helpful to have 2 attorneys collaborating and consulting with each other. But the main thing is that there are things that I would be really regretful if certain administrative duties like scheduling and oversight, the oversight of the packet and the council budget were to be were to be outside the council office. I mean, those things are essential that we should be controlling, it seems to me. And if we're going to create another FTE, why not do it in the council office? I mean, we've been, we haven't asked for much, have we, for years? It seems to me that another FTE is needed because we're all in agreement, more work is happening. And we have Zooming and things like that. So, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Zulik?
Well, it just might be worth reaching out to our public access counselor on whether or not we actually can hire. Okay, we don't. Well, if there were any experts. But I think that the question that we need answered is whether or not we can hire a non-attorney in our office, or someone who's not meant for legal research.
Thoughts here? Councilmember Ruff.
Wait, just to say, I forgot to add, I'm happy with the current job description. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember Ruff?
Yeah, I just want to make one observation or ask a question of my colleagues that made this point. So I heard people say, well, we don't want to use the current job description for this next hire because then you can't really change it once, you make the hire and things are going. Yet, at the same time, I heard someone say, well, if we choose option 2 and move some of the duties to the clerk's office and it's not working, then we can just change it. Well, that involves the council's office of staff that we're going to be hiring, so I don't see the difference really substantively between saying, well, we can change it in one way, but then we can't change it this way.
Councilmember Daley?
I was just going to circle back to something that Councilmember Flaherty said a while ago. And I think I understood what he was saying was that, our attorneys, they're in legal. They do research. That is their job. So I guess I'm wondering, and this might be totally shaking up the snow globe. What? Oh, thank you. Sorry. And this might be totally shaking things up, but maybe we don't need to have then that third role, that legal researcher, if we have attorneys who are doing that, and then turn that into an administrative role. Just throwing yet another thought on the table. I don't know if that's what you were getting at, and if I'm way off base, I apologize.
Councilmember Flaherty?
Yeah, sure. Very briefly, 100% agree we need the question answered about the administrative role. If it can be in the council office, great, do it. Maybe call the cities that do that. And yeah, use corporation counsel to assist us. But I think just to briefly distinguish, following Mr. Ruff's comments, Councilmember Ruff's comments, I think if it's an administrative role that isn't working in service to our attorneys, like that's very different than saying like this doesn't work, we need a different administrative function, than telling our lead attorney that like your job description isn't what we want anymore and we're just going to change it and you can keep your job or not. It feels to me like it's a total office restructure versus like, I don't know, making it, I guess it feels like different in scale of like how to make adjustments. That's all. But.
Okay, we have 2 minutes, so any last comments? Councilmember Rosenberg.
We do have hybrid positions right now. I think to get around the attorney hiring thing, attorney administrator, I think we could have legal research and operations. I think too, we talk a lot about administrative, but I think about it as like office management and operations, right? Pens, pencils, all the constituent services is a huge thing, which could also be like initial legal research for a constituent or something like that. I think I asked this in our last meeting, but if I just couldn't find, I just didn't look up the state code, if it says we can only have the positions of attorney and legal researcher, or if those are the people we need to hire, because those are two different things.
All right, last comment. Okay, well, thank you all. Would you something, Councilmember Salzberg?
It's not worth it.
Okay. Okay. Well, we the hiring committee is going to meet on Tuesday again. Hopefully, we can, from what we've heard, sort of get that together and make a little bit of motion here to bring it back to you all at our next meeting to vote on something amongst the many things in our charge. So, thank you so much for the time. And we'll now get up and transition to the next thing. Thank you all for being here. We're adjourned.